Today on Galactic Conquest, we have a new Star Wars Always trailer putting together 10 movies into one. It's fantastic. Jedi Fallen Order is supposedly being released this year at Star Wars Celebration, and Episode 9 has finished its principal photography. What does this mean for the rest of the series? Let's talk about all of that right now. Hello everybody and welcome to the official first episode of Galactic Conquest with our new name. I think we like it as long as we can get away with it. I'm not mad.
Yeah, we're taking a little bit of a shot in the dark, but we'll see if it's okay. If it's not, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Yeah, it's fine. We have to change the name later. Oh well. But let's just jump right into this. You know, my name is Joker. We've got my beautiful boss right here.
Hi, I'm mentally dead right now.
He's been running on 9 hours of sleep for about 3 days, so he's trying to plow through this with me. So we're gonna get through this as quickly and as painful as possible. But let's talk about this Star Wars Always trailer. You had just brought this up to me. Topher Grace and
Jeff Yorks.
Jeff Yorks made it, and he had just pulled it up, and I had no idea what it was, and it was just like one of those fan edits. Watched the entire thing. Absolutely fantastic work. It's a great way to bring it all together. What are your thoughts on it?
I won't say exactly what happens, like at the end, how they wrap it up. It's just something that you should experience for yourself. But particularly that closing segment, the last like 20 seconds or so, I think that's what really did it for me. It really sold me on the whole thing. Essentially, it's just a fan trailer like we've seen 1,000 times before, but this time it's Topher Grace, who we all know and love, and Jeff Yorks, who he's already a trailer editor. He's already pretty established in that field, so.
I mean, yeah, I just thought it was one of those things. I sent it to my mom, honestly. Like, as soon as I watched it, I said, if you've ever had any question as to why I love Star Wars so much, this is what it is right here. It's just, you watch it and you get so much nostalgia and you get so much pride from it, honestly, to like being a Star Wars fan. You're just like, this is what it's about right here. Super excited. It was just a great thing to watch. It was a feel-good moment. And like, no matter if you hate the prequels, if you hate the sequels, if you hate the original trilogy, if you hate that George Lucas ruined Star Wars, if you hate that Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars, if you hate that J.J. Abrams, you get what I'm saying? If you don't like any of those standalone films, this is something that can bring all 10 films together and just show you like something that you love in its entirety. It spans literally everything, and it's perfect. It's a 5-minute trailer. Go check it out. I'll have a link for it in the description below so you can check it out. Super, super cool. All right, so next we've got confirmation that the new game Jedi Fallen Order is going to be showcased at Star Wars Celebration this year. Super pumped for it because we haven't had a decent Star Wars game in 10 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, Battlefront 2, it did a lot with the story. Like, the Iden Versio whole lineage thing. I thought that was a great attempt at introducing a new storyline to Star Wars, giving us something that we really haven't seen before. Like, there was some bloodline stuff, there was some lineage going on, which is familiar. That's very Star Wars.
Of course.
But it was presented in a way that it was a new spin. It took a risk, and I think it paid off really well. Inferno Squadron has become kind of one of my favorite pieces of the new Star Wars. Oh, absolutely.
I love Inferno Squadron, and the main story of Battlefront 2 was great, and the DLC to add to it was just fantastic. It's a shame they didn't go any farther, but of course, now that the middle between episodes 1 and 8 have been so fleshed out, you can't really add in a new character and not expect them to live.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't work out that way. So,
unfortunately, some things are already written in the stars, especially in that particular timeline.
Which is probably what's going to happen in Jedi Fallen Order. This is a game that focuses on a young Jedi apprentice who is surviving in between episodes 3 and 4, right after Order 66. So, no clue what's going to be going on. We have no idea if it's going to be anything like, kind of like The Force Awakens, where you were kind of a Jedi and was taken in by Darth Vader, in the sense of, you're trying to hide out from the Empire, and if you're just trying to fight back against it and end up fighting Vader, and the character's probably gonna die. I'm gonna call that right now, just because, like I just said, there's no way you can introduce a new character and him not get through it. Unless you're going to be the whole... And then he went to the Outer Rim and no one ever saw him again. Which, I guess would be fine, but...
That, I guess, could work. If you're not going to kill them off, which is typically what happens in this, timeline. Sorry. The other way to pull that off, I think, is they were just forced into hiding. They're somewhere amongst us. Maybe we'll see them again in another medium or, a book or a comic or something. But they were essentially given the Ben Kenobi treatment, where they were just forced to kind of disconnect themselves. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is another chance to introduce the idea, like with what Luke did, where he cut himself off from the Force.
Yeah.
Somebody who tries to do that because they're in hiding. We speculated a little bit about that on last week's episode where we talked about Obi-Wan's whole situation on Tatooine. Maybe he did that as well. So this could be another chance to dive into that and give that some more thought, because that was one of the more divisive aspects of The Last Jedi. So maybe we see that come back into play. I don't know, but it could be another interesting take versus just having another, hey, new protagonist, you're making things happen, and then, oh no, you're dead. You're very dead.
Yeah, I think it's gonna kind of play like The Force Unleashed, and then just because just the opposite, instead of like finding and hunting down the Jedi, more like trying to see if there's any left, and like to build like whatever's left to fight against the Empire. I think that would be a cool way to take it.
Yeah, I think that should be about what to expect, even if you're not rebuilding, the order to fight back. That doesn't really seem like the case. If it is just like a solo mission, one person doing the best they can, I would be cool with that, because that is kind of the antithesis from The Force Unleashed, and it would be a nice spin on things because you would get to see the other side of the story during that time, which hasn't really been delved into that much from what I've read or watched.
Yeah.
I really don't know of any other examples where you could kind of point out that storyline.
Yeah, I think it's either going to be like that, or it's going to be what was it? Was it Jedi Knight or Jedi Academy, where you played as like the lone Jedi who was just by himself the whole time?
Jedi Academy, you started the game kind of on a group encounter, but yeah, most from what I remember, Jedi Outcast.
That was the one I was thinking about.
That's Kyle Katarn, and yeah, he's mostly solo, kind of doing his own thing.
I think it's going to be like that, or it's going to be something closer to The Force Unleashed, just from a light side perspective.
I can see it being a decent mix of those two, because Jedi Outcast did do a good job of kind of focusing on the narrative portion of Star Wars. It didn't really get into the combat system as much as something like The Force Unleashed did, where it was mostly about the destructive power and the lightsaber fighting and all of that, which was really the highlight. And then there was a good story behind it, but I feel like Outcast kind of did the opposite of that.
Right.
It was fun to run around, but the story, I think, was, from what I remember, kind of the driving force of the game.
But unfortunately, it is made by EA, so it's probably going to be terrible.
It's Respawn, though.
Okay, yeah.
So they just released Apex. They're on a hot streak. So maybe we could see something happen. Like I said, they're on a hot streak with Apex Legends. They're doing everything right so far, even though we are realistically only like 3 months into that game's lifespan, I think. Or no, 3 weeks, sorry, into that game's lifespan.
I have high expectations for it, so...
Yeah, I think it could be really good.
I was going to say, this is something that we've needed for a while. We need a good Star Wars game, a good, offline Star Wars game, especially. Nothing that's online or just completely multiplayer. Whatever does not involve microtransactions.
Oh, God, please.
And for our final story, we have, this is older news, but there's more questions that can be asked with it. Episode 9 has finished its principal photography just in time for Star Wars Celebration, so they've got time to make a trailer if they haven't already. Get it all out for us in April. So excited for that. So principal photography is done. They've still got room for reshoots, because it's going to happen. It doesn't matter what movie it is, they're always going to have reshoots. Then they've got plenty of time they got about, I think, 7 to 8 months for post-production.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but the way these movies are being shot in such a familiar style, each one, even though they did different things with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, they do have a kind of cohesive coloring and style about them. There's a lot of stuff that kind of remained true across the board. It's the Star Wars style. So I think when you have dailies where you're going and reviewing the footage, you have an idea of what it's going to look like. It's going to be on a hurried timeline. But I don't expect it to be a negative impact on the movie. I think they have enough time to make it what they want, because just because they finished the principal doesn't mean they weren't already working, trying to get pieces put together anyway. So.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like, I'm assuming if they finished it like that and they have this much time to get that done, I think that they know, maybe they have posted down, they know exactly what they're going to change. So maybe there's just not a whole lot they have to add to it. But
yeah,
I don't make movies, so I can't make that guess. But I'm assuming JJ did 7, so maybe he just has a good feel of how it's going to go over. So he thinks that the post for episode 9 is just going to be more smoothly. So they've got plenty of time to get everything they need done, including reshoots, and then have it ready by the time it's released in December.
Yeah, usually that takes you're looking at like a month to deliver it out, at least for the theaters to have it in time for your launch day, and then sometimes it's a month and a half. It's in that range. But yeah, you're really looking at 6 months is like the safe point. Like if you're done at 6 months, great. you're pushing it every day that you go further past that, at least in this situation, because you never know what will need to be fixed, what you don't like, what you're going to have to adjust. Like you said, if there are, for whatever reason, some reshoots that need to happen, those have to happen pretty quickly so you can really nail it down. I think it's a safe window. I am a little worried that if they do have to get into some heavy reshoots because certain things didn't come across correctly, we've seen it with other movies where it's like, we had the right idea shooting, but for whatever reason, that day it just didn't come out the way that we wanted it.
Right.
That's what concerns me the most is, are you going to get, another month down the line and be like, well, turns out 30 minutes of the movie needs to be reshot, which is a significant portion.
Yeah.
So that would be a little off-putting to me, but because they've already done the movie, they've already done the lines, they've done the setup, it would be significantly faster to do it a second time than going into it blind. So that is the saving grace of it all, I think. The experience and the familiarity. They've already worked with JJ for now 2 whole movies. So there's no adjustment period. You can just jump right in and knock out what you need to do.
And I agree with you on that because I know it's like with Solo, they had to reshoot like half the movie just because it did not work out with, it was Chris Miller.
Lord Miller, Chris Miller. They did. The final reports ended up saying that Howard that took over.
Yeah.
He ended up having about 33% of the movie was genuinely his product, and the rest was just shaping what they had already done into a certain style. So, yeah, that was a little troubling because they went pretty late in the process with that.
Yeah,
as
because
well.
it was like really last minute when they decided. And it was like, okay, we need a new director to do this, and we're gonna refilm like half the movie. I don't think that's gonna be the case here because it's JJ's movie. He knows what he's doing. They don't have to change.
Yeah, they've had the vision. They trust JJ. They're letting him run with it. So that probably wouldn't be the case here.
But I mean, you never know. They were saying the same thing with Episode 8 because they're like, they didn't have to change out directors for Rian Johnson. He said there was no problems with the entire movie, and then half of the fan base hated it.
Yeah, but he made the movie he wanted to make.
Exactly, so no problem there.
It's like there wasn't any problem. They trusted him to do his thing. He made the movie. It's a great Rian Johnson movie. I particularly like it. There are some things that I would have changed, but by no means do I hate the movie. So if JJ, and I love 7 too, so if JJ could just pick it up where he left off, whatever, I'll be fine with that. I'm just excited to see where this thing's rolling, where that train ends.
Oh, I'm so excited, and I wonder what it's going to mean after this movie comes out. What do you think is next for the franchise? Do you think, because this is the end of another era when you think about it, because that's another trilogy in the bag. I remember being so excited about this in like 2013 when they had announced the Disney buyout of Lucasfilm, and now we've already got these movies on top of 2 standout solo films as well.
So, in my best guess, I would think that this would be the time for Disney and Lucas to come together and reset the structure going forward. When we came into this period with Star Wars, we didn't really have a unified goal to get to. Mm-hmm. We knew that there was a trilogy coming. There were talks of series, another animated thing, maybe some more movies. Like that came up late in the game, right before the Benioff and Weiss and Rian Johnson trilogies were announced. We had heard for a couple of days, or maybe even months at that point, that there was standalones coming. There was maybe another trilogy coming after these.
Yeah.
And so we got to that point eventually where it had a healthy future, but it didn't have a direct through line to that future. Now, this is the time I think that they need to sit back and watch and just react appropriately. Mm-hmm. You can't overreact and say, okay, 8 threw us all the way off, so we're going to kill all of our plans and do nothing for 4 years.
Yeah, don't do that.
No. So you put out 9, you wait and watch the reception for that. If it brings the fan base back together a little bit, which is what we're all hoping for, I don't particularly enjoy having a super divided Star Wars fan base.
No, I don't.
It makes things less interesting and less fun. But if you can put it out and people enjoy it, and you can do The Mandalorian right, and Fallen Order is right, like those are 3 huge building pieces that will give you a more direct connecting line to say, all right, our plan is we're going to focus on the TV shows and the video games for the next 4 years. Then Benioff and Weiss can start rolling out their trilogy or sequence or whatever they're calling it of movies that they're doing. I think that would be the time to reflect and decide what the best path is for that.
Okay.
That's what I would do personally if I was Kathleen Kennedy or whoever is going to be running that idea board when we get to that point.
Nice.
What about you? What are you thinking?
I'm kind of on the same page, Aaron. I think after this, I think Kathleen Kennedy is going to step down and give it to someone else that is wanting to take it to be a better version of what it already has been. Mm-hmm. I think they are going to slow down quite a bit after this movie comes out with the release of stuff. They're going to put, some books, games, maybe a TV show here and there. And then, we've got the Cassian Andor series and The Mandalorian coming out with Disney+. I think it'll probably be... Would it be safe to say about 5 or 6 years before the next trilogy starts rolling out?
I could see it being 5 years.
Or is that too far out?
I could see it going that long just because we did get into an era where we were just going back to back to back. Mm-hmm. When The Force Awakens came out, we started seeing that, like, okay, there's something here. We could ride this momentum. But then we might have taken it just a little too far by going year after year there.
I mean, I personally would not be upset about it. I'd be happy with that. But I can see, like, after a while, it gets to a point where there's a little bit of a burnout, and then the movies start coming way too fast, and you don't have the time to sit and actually think about creating something that the fans are really going to enjoy, and just doing it to make the next deadline.
And I think once a year could have worked, but they really, I think, bungled it when Solo came out less than, 6 months or 4 months or something?
Yes, literally, like, directly after
They
Last
came out
Jedi.
in May, right?
Yeah.
And Last Jedi was December, so yeah, you have like 5 months, just barely, in between those movies. That could have been pushed out to December. I think that would have helped all around, and I think that schedule could still work, but I do think there needs to be, like I said, some reshaping. Mm-hmm. Let The Mandalorian, let Cassian Andor, we're hearing that there might be some other character shows. Let that run out. Let's see what Disney Plus is going to do. Let's see what the books are doing. Like, Claudia Gray has been killing it over there. Chuck Wendig no longer with Star Wars. Let's get some new faces in. Let's get more creative people on board and just start pumping out good Star Wars content, whether it's TVs, books, video game, movies, whatever. But yeah, I would say 3 to 4 years is probably the safe bet on when is Benioff and Weiss or Ryan Johnson or whoever's up next. Let's see what they're doing. Let's give it some time, then let it roll out. Let's let this thing fully develop. Let's cook up a plan and then run with it. I'm
so there for it. I'm like 100% on board. If they do that, I think it's going to be perfect, smooth transitions, and I think Star Wars is going to get back to what the entirety of the fan base was wanting from the beginning. Yeah. But before we get out of here, I do have one question for you. Pretty similar that if you've watched our comic book show Super here on the channel, you'll kind of get the same thing here. If you could add one thing or change one thing, what would be your addition to the Star Wars canon? Whether it's in this time off, or what would you like to be the next trilogy? Where's your head at? I think they just need to expand beyond the Skywalker story in any way. I think they need to go back and reestablish the Old Republic in any way. Take what you want, get rid of, like the Old Republic, the MMO. I'm not too fond of that storyline, but the Knights of the Old Republic, Darth Malak, Darth Bane, Darth Nihilus, my absolute favorite, Revan, all that stuff. If we want to focus back then, 3,000, 5,000 years before the events of the Phantom Menace, I want to know what happened way back then, or go farther back, go to the Jedi, way back before like the Jedi were even established. Just something way out in the past, or something straight ahead in the future, like thousands of years in the future from the main points that we've had. I think that's where I would go, particularly is let's just take this thing further. That way you can still see everything that's familiar. Mm-hmm. You can still see the impact of the Skywalkers, because no matter how Episode 9 turns out, they are like a pivotal force in this universe. For sure. They have turned things around entirely. There's literally not a path you could take within the standards between Episode 1 and Episode 9 that doesn't in some way or another connect directly to the Skywalkers. Yeah, that's a very, forceful, and like that is a wave of just non-stop Skywalker involvement. They've changed the face of this galaxy. So let's see that 1,000 years later. So let's see what comes up out of the ashes of Episode 9. I want to see, 1,000 years later, what is the galaxy doing to stop something like the First Order or the Empire? Yeah. Do we have another, wave of Force users develop somewhere along the line? Is it something similar to the Yuzon Vong kind of thing? What are we headed into? I want to see what that's. What is the next step in Star Wars? Let's get a film adaptation of the Outbound Flight. Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. Not what we need to do. Don't think it would help. But it would be great, just that little standoff thing on the side. Yeah, that's my all-time favorite. It's just so good. But that's all I've got, so I'll pass this thing over to you and let you close it out. I mean, that's all we've got here in terms of our notes. So that's going to be it for this episode of Galactic Conquest. Leave a comment down below and tell us what you think about the episode. If you've got anything you'd like us to add or more things you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We'd be happy to cover it. That'll be all for this episode, and we will see you guys next time. And remember, may the Force be with you.